Part 2 of the Selkie. 2 weeks later, the king held a summer ball and feast. As much as Marceline was looking forward to the food and the dancing, she was unhappy. She still didn't have her pelt, so she could not transform into her sea lion body, and she missed her family something dreadful. She missed the loud, bustling family meals and being able to tease her sisters. She missed the most of all at night, sleeping all alone when at home she and her sisters would pile up like sea pups and fall asleep peacefully as their mother sang to them a lullaby. But most of all, she's very frustrated because she could not find the sea witch. While her friends were busy with jobs, she spent her time hunting for the sea witch, with no success. No matter how long Marceline stayed in the water, sending waves of magic out in search of the sea witch's black magic, she could not sense her. Prince Callum asked to escort Marceline to the ball, and she said yes. She was beginning to be quite fond of the prince. He was as kind and gentle and understanding as he was handsome. He never made her feel dumb, and she didn't understand a human custom, or when she made a mistake, he was always a strong swimmer and could actually keep up with Marceline when they were swimming, which was quite a challenge, even in her human form. Marceline's dress was the most beautiful thing she'd ever worn. It was off the shoulder and made of green silk with gold embroidery around the neckline, and the hem of each layer of the skirt looked like foaming ocean waves hitting a shore. Around her waist was a gold chain belt, and it was strung with beautiful pieces of sea glass, the same color as her dress. Combs and a necklace of gold and sea glass had been made for Marceline, and they looked like flowers that bloomed in the grasses on the beach. When Marceline and Callum opened the dancing at the ball, her heart sang with music, which sounded like a Selkie choir. She had never felt more beautiful and at home in all her life. As the ball got underway, Marceline began to feel itchy. Something just didn't feel right. As she sat with the royal family at the feast, the feeling got stronger and stronger until she began to feel slimy as well as itchy. She finally got a chance to take a break from the dancing and wandered away from the dance floor out toward the beach and sat on her favorite boulder. Out of the water stepped the sea witch, and before Marceline could do anything more than stand, the sea witch's tentacles wrapped around Marceline and hit her on the head with a rock before dragging her into the waves. Marceline woke up tied to the cave wall. When she struggled against her bonds, she realized she'd been bound with eel vine, a spelled seaweed that gripped her tighter the more you struggled. Selkies were usually immune to eel vine, but without her pelt, Marceline was as helpless as a fish in the net. The sea witch approached her. "Not so high and mighty, are you, princess?" she gloated. "I thought you'd hide from me. Never did I dream you'd hide from me amongst humans. Well, now you must do my bidding, or lose your pelt and your family for all eternity." The sea witch cast the spell that would force her to use her voice, but Marceline could make no sound. The sea witch was furious. "Fine," she screamed. "Then I'll do this without you. I'm going to unleash a storm that the waves will wash away that human palace, the royal family, and all of Glen-Glasera. Then I will be mistress of the sea." And with that, she left the cave. Marceline could do nothing but cry silently. She heard a low crooning sound that could only mean one creature had found her, a kelpie. Now these water horses were wild and fierce and were known to kill and eat selkies. Marceline looked up and saw the creature. Faint dapples in its skin rippled like shimmering waves in the sea. But the kelpie ripped the vine binding her to the rock and pushed her out of the cave and into the ocean. When Marceline came up for air, The Kelpie swam under her, allowing her to climb on its back. In a flash, it swam through the water toward the summer palace. Marceline made it to shore just as the ball was ending. Soaking wet, her ball gown completely ruined, Marceline warned the prince and the king, who immediately evacuated everyone out of the palace and up to the village of Eski in the mountains behind Glen Glacera. Prince Callum, with Marceline standing beside him, stood at the edge of the village and watched as giant waves crashed into the palace and destroyed it. When she saw the tears running silently down his face, she put her arms around him and hugged him. He hugged her back, and looking into her eyes, Callum kissed her. The next moment, a necklace of light flashed around Marceline's throat, and she began to cough, her knees buckling. Callum helped her back to her feet. "What was that?" he asked. "You broke the spell binding my voice," Marceline croaked, her voice tight and scratchy from lack of use. "The sea witch is bombarding you with storms for months. She wants to destroy your family and become mistress of the sea. At least you're safe here." Prince Callum kissed her again. As the water receded, the people returned to the city to see what could be salvaged. Marceline accompanied the royal family to where the summer palace had once stood. As they walked along the shore, Selkies began to come out of the water and transform into their human bodies. King Muron and all of Marceline's sisters came sprinting down the beach to her. They spoke frantically in the Selkie language, making sure Marceline was okay. There was a ghastly shriek from the ruins of the palace, and Marceline collapsed in the sand. For there stood the sea witch, surrounded by small pieces of what had once been a beautiful brown sea lion pelt. The Selkies as one sang together and brought a wave of water that picked up the sea witch and threw her inland. The Selkies tied her with eel vine and destroyed her tentacles. King Muron bound her with magic and sent her to the Selkie dungeon, never to be seen again. After many discussions between the Selkies and the royal family, Marceline and Prince Callum were able to sit in peace on her boulder, looking out at the water. "I'm sorry you lost your pelt," said Callum, taking her hand. "I'm afraid," said Marceline. "I don't know what happens to a land-bound Selkie." Callum turned to her, taking both her hands in his. "I will love you no matter what you are. Will you marry me and become my queen?" "Of course!" Marceline cried, hugging him so hard they almost fell off their boulder. 1 year later, the palace had been rebuilt, and the wedding of Prince Callum and the youngest Selkie princess was the most fantastic event the people of Ringstead had ever seen. At the end of the wedding, as the bride and groom kissed, a dozen blue whales breached the surface over and over again, and Selkie choirs began to sing and dance on the beach in human form. And in the water, in their Selkie seal bodies, there was a spectacular celebration of the love between a human and a Selkie. Callum and Marceline lived the rest of their lives in peace and happiness. And that is the story of the little Selkie. Thanks for listening, sweethearts. That's it for Stories for Kids. Come back next week for my next story. Bye-bye.